"I did not expect to see him here tonight," Claire whispered under her breath, the words barely audible as she stepped into the softly lit art gallery, where the golden glow of pendant lights danced on the polished hardwood floors and reflected off the elegant glass displays, casting gentle shadows that flickered across the walls. The scent of fresh paint and varnished wood mixed with the faint aroma of blooming lilies placed strategically in vases around the room, creating a welcoming yet tense atmosphere. As she moved further inside, she felt every eye subtly shift toward her, curious and watchful, as if sensing the quiet determination in her posture. Claire's heart thumped steadily, a rhythm that echoed her cautious anticipation, yet her movements remained deliberate and composed, adjusting her scarf with a gentle tug while keeping her gaze calm, steady, and unwavering. The whispers of curiosity swirled around her, snippets of conversation that hinted at surprise and speculation, but Claire did not falter. She allowed herself a soft inhale, the warmth of the lights brushing her cheeks, the weight of the moment settling in her chest as she observed the room's energy. Guests, dressed in refined attire, paused mid-conversation, their eyes following her with an intensity that made the air feel almost electric. She could hear the faint click of high heels against the wooden floor, and the gentle rustle of fabric as she passed by, each sound amplifying the awareness of her presence. Her thoughts wandered momentarily to how different things had been in this space before, the gallery once filled with laughter, casual greetings, and the soft hum of classical music, now transformed into a stage for subtle judgments and unspoken evaluations. Claire's lips pressed into a soft line, neither a smile nor a frown, as she absorbed the energy around her, acknowledging the attention without letting it dictate her steps. She moved past a display of modern sculptures, the light catching the smooth surfaces and casting shifting reflections, and with each careful step, she felt the pulse of the room matching her own, a quiet symphony of anticipation and restraint. Every whisper, every sideways glance seemed to narrate a story she had lived and overcome, yet in this moment, the gallery held a pause, suspended between the echoes of the past and the promise of her silent presence. Claire's hand brushed briefly against the edge of a glass display, grounding herself in the tactile reality as her eyes swept over the gathering, registering the mix of curiosity and subtle admiration. The gallery's ambient music, soft and unobtrusive, provided a steady backdrop to her thoughts, each note a reminder of her careful control over the narrative she carried into this room. The soft glow of the lights highlighted the texture of her attire, simple yet elegant, a reflection of her understated confidence, and as she inhaled deeply, she felt a quiet determination settle within her, knowing that every movement, every glance, and every measured breath would contribute to the unfolding impression she would leave behind. The tension in the space was palpable, but Claire's measured calm created a contrast that drew eyes and attention without a single word being spoken, a silent command of presence that made the room hold its breath in anticipation of what would come next. It is early evening, and the golden light from the setting sun spills through the tall windows of the elegant hotel lobby where Claire now finds herself, a soft hum of conversation and the clinking of fine china from the adjacent cafe filling the background as she quietly whispers to herself, "It has been a long time." The words carry a mixture of nostalgia and cautious anticipation as she takes a careful step forward, her heels making a subtle clicking sound against the marble floor. Guests and staff glance up as she passes, their eyes reflecting a mix of curiosity and polite acknowledgement, some whispering quietly to each other, noting her composed presence and the understated elegance of her attire. Claire's hand lightly brushes against the polished railing of the grand staircase as she ascends, grounding herself, feeling the tension in her chest yet keeping her posture straight and deliberate, each movement conveying a quiet confidence that contrasts with the murmur surrounding her. A bellhop passes by, nodding courteously, while a group of hotel patrons exchange discreet looks, sensing a story unfolding that they cannot fully grasp, their subtle gestures amplifying the charged atmosphere. The lobby's high ceilings echo with the soft strains of classical piano, blending with the warm scent of freshly brewed coffee from the nearby cafe, creating an ambience that is both inviting and suffused with unspoken expectations. Claire's eyes scan the room with calm attentiveness, catching glimpses of familiar faces and noting the shifts in expression as they register her presence, some nodding politely, others simply pausing mid-step, as if holding their breath for the unfolding moment. Her thoughts flit briefly to the past, recalling moments of laughter and conversations in similar settings, but the contrast with the current tension heightens her awareness, making every gesture and glance from those around her feel significant. She adjusts the strap of her bag, taking a measured breath, and steps toward the cafe seating area. Her movements deliberate, the soft sway of her hair and the subtle shift in her shoulders suggesting quiet determination. A waiter passes carrying a tray of beverages, and their brief eye contact with Claire carries an unspoken acknowledgement of her presence in this space that seems both familiar and transformed. Claire pauses momentarily at a corner table, the sunlight catching the glass and casting delicate patterns on the floor, her reflection mingling with the shifting shadows and the murmurs of nearby patrons. She inhales deeply, feeling the energy of the lobby seep into her senses, her heartbeat steady yet tinged with the anticipation of what might come next. The tension lingers, a subtle but persistent undercurrent as she takes her next step forward, the narrative of the room intertwining with her own internal landscape, setting the stage for the uncertain encounter that awaits, leaving her poised on the edge of curiosity and cautious vigilance, a quiet storm of emotions that hints at the unfolding journey yet to be revealed. People are talking, but I am listening only to myself, Claire thought, stepping into the small, yet elegant cafe tucked inside the corner of the hotel lobby, where the late afternoon sun filtered through tall windows, casting soft golden patterns on the polished wooden tables and floor. The air carried the warm aroma of freshly ground coffee beans, mingling with the faint scent of pastries displayed behind the glass counter, creating a comforting yet slightly tense atmosphere as she made her way past clusters of patrons quietly conversing. Friends and colleagues from the past glanced up, their eyes registering surprise and subtle curiosity, some whispering softly to each other while others simply held their gaze a moment longer, unsure of what to say. Claire moved with deliberate grace, adjusting the strap of her bag and allowing herself a slow, measured breath, her expression calm but alert, aware of the energy shifting around her. A barista polished the espresso machine, casting brief glances her way, and a server rearranged chairs at a nearby table, both small actions magnifying the sense of attention focused on her presence without anyone openly acknowledging it. The murmur of voices intertwined with the gentle clinking of cups and the faint hiss of steaming milk, creating a rhythm that seemed to echo her heartbeat, reinforcing both the tension and her control within the environment. Claire's eyes scanned the room carefully, noticing subtle reactions, the slight lifting of eyebrows, the quiet exchange of glances between strangers, each movement speaking volumes in the silent narrative that surrounded her. She took another measured step forward, her heel lightly tapping against the polished floor, and felt the weight of the moment press lightly on her shoulders, knowing that every detail, every sound, and every glance contributed to the impression she projected. The soft warmth of sunlight on her face provided a comforting contrast to the internal tension, highlighting the serene confidence in her posture, the elegance in her movements, and the quiet determination evident in her steady gaze. As she reached a corner table, she allowed herself a moment to pause, the sunlight catching on the glass surfaces nearby and reflecting delicate patterns across the floor, while her reflection mingled with the shadows of the patrons around her. Claire inhaled deeply, feeling the subtle energy of the room seep into her senses, aware that she was both observer and participant in this unfolding scene, and the awareness of being noticed yet maintaining composure created a complex weave of emotions, a quiet thrill and tension at once. She took her seat, placing her bag gently on the chair beside her, her posture straight, her expression composed, as if silently commanding the attention and respect of everyone present without uttering a single word, yet feeling the delicate pressure of unseen eyes tracking her every move. The ambience of the cafe, warm light, soft music, and quiet conversations provided a stage upon which Claire navigated her inner landscape, balancing anticipation, reflection, and careful observation, leaving an unspoken question hanging in the air. How would this afternoon unfold as her presence quietly stirred the curiosity and speculation of all those around her, promising an encounter that had yet to reveal its full significance? "So you made it," Ryan said with a faint smirk as Claire entered the hotel ballroom. The space bathed in the soft glow of early evening chandeliers, their crystals casting intricate patterns across the polished marble floors. The gentle hum of conversation and the clatter of fine china from the tables set for a small reception created a warm yet charged atmosphere, blending with the scent of fresh flowers carefully arranged in tall vases along the perimeter of the room. Claire's eyes lifted to meet Ryan's gaze, registering his polite smile and the presence of a new companion beside him, and she felt a subtle ripple of tension, a delicate balance between surprise and measured control. She inhaled slowly, the fragrance of roses and citrus from the floral arrangements mingling with the faint aroma of hors d'oeuvres, grounding her senses as she stepped gracefully further into the room, her movements deliberate, each one conveying poise and quiet confidence. Guests turned their heads, curious whispers circulating among them, some exchanging tentative smiles, others leaning slightly toward one another, caught in the silent acknowledgement of Claire's composed entrance. She adjusted the strap of her bag gently, the motion as natural as her steady breathing, her eyes scanning the room with calm attentiveness, noting the subtle expressions of intrigue, admiration, and quiet speculation that played across the faces surrounding her. A server moved past carrying a tray of glasses, giving a small nod in Claire's direction, while a waiter straightened a chair at a nearby table, their brief gestures amplifying the sense of focus on her without drawing overt attention. The warmth of the evening sun streaming through the tall windows provided a comforting glow, highlighting the texture of her dress, the subtle elegance of her hair, and the quiet authority she projected with each step. As she navigated past the clusters of guests, she could sense the shifting currents of emotion, the mixture of curiosity and polite restraint, and she allowed herself a small, controlled smile, acknowledging the room without giving any indication of her inner calculation. The subtle sparkle of the chandelier lights reflected in her eyes, mirroring the interplay of anticipation and composure she maintained, and for a brief moment, the room seemed to hold its collective breath, the conversations dampening as if awaiting her next move. Claire's hand lightly brushed the edge of a table as she moved, grounding herself, while her gaze met Ryan's again for a fleeting instant, a silent dialogue passing between them filled with unspoken histories and unresolved tension. The gentle music from the string quartet in the corner floated through the air, mingling with the faint laughter of nearby guests, creating a backdrop that was both soothing and heightening, emphasizing the quiet intensity of the encounter. She paused near the center of the ballroom, her posture straight, her expression composed, a subtle but unmistakable signal of her presence, and though the moment was calm externally, internally her mind calculated every angle, every possible reaction, aware that the evening held layers of observation, judgment, and expectation. The interplay of light, fragrance, and soft sounds enveloped her, setting a scene that was both beautiful and charged, leaving an unspoken question lingering in the room. How would the evening continue to unfold under the weight of attentive eyes and delicate anticipation, a tension poised on the edge of revelation yet unresolved? "I will not let this define me," Claire whispered to herself as the late afternoon sunlight filtered through the tall, arched windows of the hotel lounge, casting a warm amber glow on the polished wood floors and the elegant velvet chairs arranged for a small gathering. The soft murmur of conversations around her created a backdrop of subtle tension, punctuated by the occasional clink of silverware, and the gentle hiss of a tea kettle from the service cart nearby. Guests glanced her way, their expressions a mix of curiosity and cautious admiration, some tilting their heads in acknowledgement while others whispered quietly to those beside them, the sound weaving through the room like a delicate undercurrent. Claire adjusted the strap of her purse, letting her fingers brush lightly against the smooth leather as she took a measured breath, feeling a small surge of calm and control amidst the ambient noise. The light caught the edges of her dress, highlighting the understated elegance of her silhouette, while the faint scent of fresh flowers from a nearby arrangement mingled with the aroma of brewed coffee, grounding her senses in the moment. She moved gracefully between the tables, each step deliberate, the soft tap of her heels on the floor echoing faintly in the spacious room, signaling both presence and purpose without a single word spoken. A server passed with a tray of delicately arranged pastries, nodding politely, their subtle acknowledgement reinforcing the awareness of those around her without drawing overt attention. Claire's gaze swept across the lounge, noting the slight lift of an eyebrow here, a quiet glance there, the silent judgments and curious observations that seemed to ripple through the gathering like a slow, pulsing current. She paused near the center, allowing herself a moment to feel the warmth of the sunlight on her face, the interplay of shadows on the floor, and the ambient energy of the room as it ebbed and flowed with the murmurs and movements of the guests. Her lips curved into a faint, controlled smile, neither revealing too much nor hiding her composed self, a subtle signal of her confidence and poise. The intricate chandeliers above reflected softly in her eyes, casting delicate glimmers that mirrored the quiet intensity within her, a juxtaposition of inner strength against the gentle hum of polite chatter surrounding her. Claire felt the careful balancing act of presence and perception, understanding that each gesture, each breath, each glance contributed to the narrative she was quietly shaping. The warmth and elegance of the lounge seemed to accentuate both her solitude and her quiet assertion, creating a tension that was felt more than seen, an invisible thread connecting her movements to the awareness and curiosity of those around her. As she settled into a chair, the light catching on the polished surfaces and creating shimmering patterns around her, she allowed herself a controlled inhale, preparing for the unfolding encounters ahead, the room holding a delicate anticipation, leaving the lingering question of how the evening would continue, charged with subtle emotions yet unresolved. "We had dreams once," Claire whispered as she stood in the quiet corner of her New York apartment, the late afternoon sunlight filtering through the sheer curtains and casting a warm glow over the carefully arranged furniture and stacks of sketchbooks. The gentle hum of the city below reached her ears, the distant sirens and honks blending with the soft rustle of papers as she shifted slightly, her fingers brushing across the surface of a half-finished sketch, the lines and colors echoing memories of shared laughter and promises long since faded. Each drawing seemed to hold a fragment of the past, the faint scent of graphite and pencil shavings mingling with the aroma of brewing coffee from the kitchen, creating an atmosphere that was both comforting and tinged with melancholy. Claire paused by the window, her gaze drifting to the skyline where sunlight glinted off the tall buildings, reflecting in her eyes as she recalled evenings spent in similar spaces, filled with conversation and plans that now felt like distant echoes. The soft ticking of a wall clock punctuated the quiet, each second a reminder of time past and the resilience required to face the present. She ran her fingers through her hair, the silky strands catching the light, and allowed herself a moment of stillness, absorbing the interplay of shadows and light on the walls, the subtle patterns reminding her of the intricacies of life and the moments that shape us. A phone buzzed lightly on the table, a reminder of the world outside, and Claire let it lie unanswered, focusing instead on the canvas of memories that surrounded her, each one a testament to both joy and heartache. She inhaled deeply, feeling the weight of the past settle gently in her chest, a bittersweet tension that brought both clarity and a quiet ache. The soft breeze drifting through the open window carried the faint scent of the city's autumn air, crisp yet comforting. As she traced her gaze over the framed sketches and notes pinned carefully to the walls, each one a silent narrative of dreams and intentions, Claire's eyes lingered on a particular sketch, a depiction of a shared vision once held with someone who had now become a part of her past, and a small resolute smile tugged at her lips, a subtle acknowledgement of the growth and understanding gained through time and reflection. The sunlight shifted slowly, casting longer shadows across the room, highlighting the textures of paper, wood, and fabric, each detail immersing her in a tapestry of sensory reflection that blended past and present seamlessly. She stepped lightly across the hardwood floor to retrieve another sketchbook, the soft creak under her feet a familiar, grounding sound, and allowed herself to sit, turning the pages slowly, each illustration a story, each line a memory. As the afternoon waned, the room seemed suspended between the warmth of sunlight and the cool promise of evening, the space holding a quiet tension that mirrored the contemplation in her mind. Claire's breath was steady, her posture poised, yet within her chest a flutter of anticipation lingered, a question unspoken as if the room itself awaited the next movement in her unfolding narrative. The interplay of light, memory, and gentle sounds created an immersive environment, a reflective pause where past experiences converged with present awareness, leaving her poised on the edge of realization, the narrative of her journey stretching forward with possibilities yet to be explored, and a subtle tension held the space in expectant balance, suggesting that the next chapter of understanding and self-discovery was only moments away. Alone but not broken, Claire murmured as she stepped out into the crisp morning air of Central Park, the sunlight filtering through the amber and crimson leaves of autumn, casting intricate shadows on the winding paths and glistening on the damp patches of grass after an early drizzle. The park was alive with subtle movement. Joggers passed with rhythmic strides, a dog bounded joyfully after a thrown frisbee, and a street musician played a soft, melancholic tune on a violin, the notes mingling with the distant hum of city traffic. Claire walked deliberately, her sketchbook tucked under her arm, feeling the slight chill of the breeze against her cheeks as she watched the world around her, each detail grounding her in the present. She paused by a wooden bench where an elderly couple shared a quiet conversation, their soft laughter a gentle contrast to the complexity of her own thoughts, and she allowed herself a small, reflective smile before continuing along the path. A vendor rearranged freshly baked pastries at a small cart nearby, glancing briefly at Claire with a polite nod, acknowledging her presence without interrupting the delicate rhythm of the morning. The rustle of leaves underfoot and the distant barking of a dog provided a soothing cadence as Claire's mind wandered, tracing the patterns of past challenges and triumphs, the fleeting memories of heartbreak blending with the resolute sense of growth she carried within her. Her fingers brushed lightly against the edge of her sketchbook, the familiar texture offering a small comfort, and she opened it to a fresh page, sketching the park scene with careful strokes, capturing both the movement of the world and the quiet strength she felt in herself. The scent of damp earth and fallen leaves mingled with the faint aroma of roasted coffee from a nearby street cafe, creating a rich tapestry of sensory detail that anchored her attention. Claire's gaze lifted to the skyline where the morning sun caught the tops of distant buildings, their glass facades reflecting light like scattered jewels, and she felt a swell of quiet determination, a sense of purpose threading through the gentle rhythm of her steps and the careful observation of her surroundings. She paused again, watching a child chase a butterfly across the lawn, the innocence of the scene stirring a gentle warmth in her chest, and she allowed herself a slow, deep breath, feeling both the weight of solitude and the subtle liberation that came with self-reliance. Each movement, each glance, each carefully considered step seemed to blend seamlessly into the narrative of her own awakening, a balance of reflection and forward motion, until the park opened onto a small clearing where a bench overlooked a tranquil pond. Claire set down her sketchbook and knelt briefly to capture the reflection of autumn trees on the water's surface, the ripples distorting and reshaping familiar shapes, a metaphor for her own life reshaping in subtle, profound ways. The interplay of light and shadow, movement and stillness, brought a layered depth to the moment, and as she straightened, she sensed the presence of a passerby offering a polite smile, a brief acknowledgement that reminded her of the shared humanity in these quiet moments. Despite the calm of the morning, an undercurrent of anticipation lingered, the subtle tension of what lay ahead in her personal journey, leaving her poised on the edge of discovery and curiosity, as if the next step would reveal something previously unseen, holding the promise of growth and connection yet unresolved. A new chapter begins, Claire thought as she pushed open the heavy glass doors of her newly rented design studio in Brooklyn, the late morning sun streaming through wide industrial windows, illuminating walls lined with sketches, paint swatches, and carefully pinned inspirations. The soft hum of the city outside, punctuated by the distant rumble of a delivery truck and the chatter of passers-by on the sidewalk, created a lively yet controlled backdrop to her first day in this space, a place that would become both her sanctuary and her canvas for reinvention. Claire inhaled deeply, letting the scent of fresh paint, polished wood, and faint coffee from a nearby cafe settle around her, grounding her in the tactile reality of the room and the excitement that mingled with the nerves fluttering in her stomach. She placed her sketchbook on the central work table, the smooth surface reflecting the warm sunlight and highlighting the crisp lines of her drawings. Guests and collaborators were yet to arrive, but already the space hummed with potential energy, the quiet anticipation vibrating softly under her skin. As she adjusted her chair and walked to the pinboard, Claire allowed herself a moment to reflect on the journey that brought her here. Long walks through the park, quiet mornings sketching alone, and the small triumphs that had built her confidence into this moment. The door chimed as the first visitor stepped in, a friendly young designer named Sophie, carrying a portfolio filled with fresh ideas. Sophie's eyes widened slightly at the organized chaos of color, sketches, and fabric swatches, her excitement contagious as she greeted Claire warmly. "I cannot believe this space, it is perfect for your vision." Claire's lips curved into a genuine smile, her shoulders relaxing as she welcomed Sophie, offering her a tour while explaining the layout and purpose of each corner. The sunlight glinted off the windows, casting playful shadows across the hardwood floor, and the gentle breeze drifting in from the open street carried the faint aroma of baked bread from the bakery next door, creating a sensory backdrop that mingled with the creative energy in the studio. Claire and Sophie moved together through the space, discussing design concepts and the potential for collaboration, the dialogue light yet purposeful, with Claire's voice steady, reflecting her newly found assurance. Each gesture, from turning pages in a portfolio to pointing at sketches pinned to The wall communicated a silent but potent message. This was Claire's space, her reclaiming of passion and focus after months of introspection and quiet rebuilding. The afternoon unfolded with a rhythm of productivity, laughter, and shared vision, yet beneath the harmony lingered a subtle tension, a quiet reminder of the larger journey still ahead, the path that would soon intersect with familiar faces from the past, and the questions of how she would navigate those encounters with the poise and composure she had cultivated. As the sun dipped lower in the sky, casting elongated shadows across the studio floor, Claire paused in the doorway, gazing at the city beyond the window, feeling the promise of the space and her own growth, yet sensing the anticipation of challenges still to come, leaving her poised on the edge of curiosity and readiness for what the next encounter might reveal. "Lucas, let us make something amazing together," Claire said with quiet enthusiasm as they stepped into the bright, spacious co-working space in downtown Manhattan, sunlight streaming through the floor-to-ceiling windows and illuminating the exposed brick walls and modern furnishings. The soft hum of computers, the distant chatter of other creative teams, and the gentle clatter of keyboards created a lively yet focused environment, blending seamlessly with the scent of freshly brewed coffee from the adjacent cafe. Claire opened her sketchbook on the large communal table, turning to a page filled with preliminary designs, the crisp sound of paper drawing attention as Lucas leaned in to examine the details, his eyes reflecting a mix of admiration and curiosity. They exchanged ideas in hushed, purposeful tones, the rhythm of their dialogue punctuated by the occasional gesture toward color swatches pinned on the wall or fabric samples spread across the table. A colleague passing by offered a friendly nod, recognizing the collaboration unfolding, while a delivery person wheeled a cart through the hallway, their presence adding to the ambient texture of the space without breaking the focus of the pair. Claire's hand traced the outlines of a concept, adjusting lines and shading with careful precision, each movement conveying both intent and subtle excitement, as she explained the inspiration behind her choices. The sunlight shifted slightly, casting elongated shadows across the table and highlighting the vibrancy of the sketches, the reflections in the glass surfaces catching Lucas's attention and eliciting a small, appreciative smile. Claire's eyes flicked to the windows, observing the activity outside while remaining fully engaged in the creative process, the interplay of internal focus and external observation heightening her awareness and reinforcing her sense of purpose. As they moved through the designs, Claire suggested minor adjustments, gesturing to a color palette, and then stepping back to evaluate the visual harmony, Lucas following suit, nodding thoughtfully as he considered her suggestions. The ambient noise, light, and movement within the space formed a dynamic backdrop, emphasizing the collaborative energy that pulsed between them, and Claire felt a surge of quiet satisfaction, a blend of anticipation and accomplishment. The tactile sensation of the paper, the smooth surfaces of the table, and the slight warmth of sunlight on her skin grounded her in the moment, reinforcing the connection between imagination and tangible creation. Each idea shared, each adjustment made, and each nod of agreement deepened the sense of partnership and the possibility of something extraordinary emerging from their combined efforts. Despite the focus and flow of creativity, an undercurrent of tension lingered, a subtle awareness of impending challenges and the knowledge that external circumstances, including past encounters and expectations, might soon intersect with this fragile equilibrium. The hum of activity continued, punctuated by the quiet movements of colleagues and the distant sounds of the city beyond the windows, leaving Claire poised at the edge of anticipation, the next step in their collaborative journey holding the promise of discovery, innovation, and the subtle thrill of what was yet to be revealed. "I never expected to see him again," Claire whispered as she stepped into the chic rooftop cafe in Midtown Manhattan, the late afternoon sun, casting warm golden light across the outdoor terrace, glinting off the glass railing and highlighting the city skyline in the distance. The gentle hum of conversation, the clatter of coffee cups on saucers, and the distant honk of traffic far below created a lively urban soundtrack, blending seamlessly with the scent of freshly brewed espresso and the faint aroma of blooming jasmine from potted plants arranged